of us to this edition. This is an important edition because we are fortunate to have the pleasure of one of the lecturer in the learning institution in Nigeria, University of Ilorin to be precise. He's a pathologist, and he will be guiding us on research methodology this afternoon. So not to waste too much of our time, let me welcome on board Dr. Ajadi Abiodun. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
So the
It's my
floor is
pleasure.
open to you. Yeah, thank you so much for coming around.
All right, thank you so much. And I'm glad to be here once again. The last time I came on board was the initial session where you took us through the diagnostic procedures in avian practice. And this afternoon, I will be interacting with us on the research methodology. It's going to be an interactive session, and every one of us will participate, and just for us to acquaint ourselves or remind ourselves with what we have known about the concept of research and what the research methodology is all about. Our existence is a product of research, and the fact that we do things and even what we are equally making use of presently, all these are product of research. And research is a continual thing that has become part of us. We cannot delineate ourselves from it. So it's quite an interesting thing to know. And we, as veterinarians and as scientists, we cannot or we should not be found wanting in this regard. And whichever discipline we have found ourselves, we always look at how to develop more in these areas. And when we do so, we have to engage ourselves in one form of research or the other. Though it's a scientific process, but the logical and organization attached to research makes it more beneficial than any other activities that human existence engaged with. So without much ado, let me share the slide with us while we take ourselves through the course of this project. Yeah, my name once again is Ajadi A Abiodun from the Department of Veterinary Pathology, University of Ilorin. And this afternoon, I will be interacting with us on the topic research methodology and all we need to know about the concept research methodology. And like I said earlier, please, I would want it to be an interactive session so that it's not a one-way traffic thing. I don't want to be the only person talking. So as to know the level of our understanding about what research is all about and what research methodology entails. And it must, and I'm sure by the end of this interactive session, we should be able to differentiate what research methodology is from what research method is and what are the things associated with research methodology. Actually, research methodology is all activities from inception to completion about research. And research in itself is about problem solving. If you are not solving a problem, then you are not undergoing any research. By way of definition, research refers to research that is a long journey of discovery, a journey whereby you bring to know the unknown, a journey whereby the hidden things in the universe are brought to the limelight. And re means again and again. That is, in response to something that is continuous. And such means a long journey of knowledge. In other words, research is a scientific journey of knowledge, whereby problems are logically and organizedly solved. It is, in other words, it means researchers are problem solvers, but not all problem solvers are researchers. So research may be said to be an adventure of problem advancement of the existing solution. What simply means a scientific way of solving humans' problems. Perhaps the advancement of existing solution means that it validates or it enhances already an existing solution, but you want to improve in it. For instance, when the advent of computer came, there's this IBM whereby a whole of a 4-word room can be said to be a computer with a monitor. But research makes it possible to have simpler gadgets with the same and advanced function. All these things are as a result of research or researches that were conducted that made all these things possible. So in other words, research is an adventure of problem solving and advancement of existing solutions. Then what are the objectives of research? The purpose of any research is to find out truths which has long remained undiscovered, or to consolidate on existing truths. In line with what I've said earlier, that look, for every research, the objective is to solve problem or to advance or bring advancement to an existing solution. It is still in order to serve the humanity better. So any research may have one or more objectives befitting the purpose of the study. For instance, coccidiosis in avian, or we say avian coccidiosis. And we want to look at the effect of amprolium, so to say, on coccidiosis. So a research the objective of conducting such a research should be tending towards arriving at solution to the problem of coccidiosis via the use of amprolium as an instance. So for us to have research objectives, you must have done some background findings, and whatever research you are going to carry out, it must be in line with the said objectives. And every research may have one or more objectives. There could be a generalized objective, and there could be subjective terms under the generalized objectives. What I mean is that you can have the basic objectives and now have sub-objectives under the basic ones. Like I mentioned earlier, the use of amprolium in the treatment of coccidiosis, just as an instance. So under objectives, under these main objectives, you can now have what are the clinical signs shown in birds with coccidiosis, or what is the pathogenesis of coccidiosis in birds. All these things, they are put into consideration so as to arrive at the main objective. So objectives of research, it's like a guide, a stepwise procedure so as to arrive at a solution to an existing problem or to validate an existing solution in an advanced form. So what this simply means is that for every research, there must be an objective. In fact, without an objective, a research cannot be accomplished because it is a guide. It gives you the goals of what you are actually doing. And that's why objectives in the research is very, very important. And it must be spelled out. In the later course of our discussion, we'll mention the criteria of a good research, and then we will appreciate the values or the essential of objectives in research. Like I said earlier on, that research methodology should be differentiated from research method, because research methodology is a systemic process of solving a research problem. It's the science of studying how a research is carried out scientifically. So it encompasses all various activities from identifying the problem, creating a research problem, establishing an objectives of research, the procedures we take in carrying out the research, analyzing the results, the what, the how, why, and all that are associated with research. That is what methodology is all about, and which is quite different from research method, which is just a part of research methodology. That is the techniques involved in carrying out a research, and it is defined as techniques or methods used in performing research operation. That's research method, which is different from research methodology, which is the science of studying how a research is carried out. No, research method mostly includes the analytical tools of research, the method of collecting information, that is from your observation or questionnaire or survey or experimentation, or using appropriate survey or case study. But research methodology has all this, including other aspects of research. It is a kind of multi-dimensional concept in which research method constitutes a part of it. So in other words, research methodology has a wider scope and arena compared to research method. While discussing research methodology, a researcher should talk not only about information or analysis of information, but from the inception of what research is. Oh, you get to a farm, you understand there's a problem in this farm, and you need to solve the problem in this farm. So from the word go, research methodology begins from that very, very place where you have observed the problems on that particular farm. And it goes like that until you are able to provide solution into that problem. That is what research methodology is all about. But the information you gather and how you analyze it is just a method. And it is pertinent that we explain this so that we do not erroneously use the word interchangeably. They are actually different things. The next slide is research approach. How do we approach research? Grossly, they are categorized, the approach are categorized into two: the qualitative approach and the quantitative approach. The qualitative approach, it is the one that is concerned with the attitude, opinions, behaviors, impressions, or character of respondents in a situation whereby you give out questionnaires. It is a subjective principle whereby you only analyze the opinion of your respondents. So it is qualitative. But the quantitative approach, which includes inferential approach, experimental approach, and simulation approach, it is quantitative in the sense that it is objective. You can have various informations because it is under the control of the researcher. When we say inferential approach, information is obtained to use or to draw inference about the population characteristics. Say, for instance, you want to see how many Noila can produce certain number of eggs within a particular period of time. So you want to make inference from a particular population, from a particular group of population. So you want to make inference based on the characteristics of that population. Then for the experimental approach, it is the one we all are used to as students, whereby you carry out experiments. That it is done under the control of the researcher. You put the subject in a controlled environment. Is another approach, but in this approach is also a quantitative approach of a research. Then the third one is simulation approach, which is operation of a numerical model that represents the structure of a dynamic process. In a simulation approach, artificial environment is created within which required information can be generated. Even the values for initial and ideal condition, parameters and exogenous variables, simulation is drawn to represent or generate behavior of a process gain. What I'm saying in essence is this: simulation approach, you have a mathematical model to examine a particular population, and it is always used whereby you visualize the future condition under different varying conditions, but you still get the same results. So these are approaches that are involved in research. Either you use the qualitative or the quantitative approach, but this approach is informed based on the objective of your research. You can see it's a stepwise thing, because if there are no objectives, you may not be able to say which approach to take so as to arrive at those objectives. And each of these approach has its own advantages and disadvantages. But the appropriate approach will always be in line with the set out objectives for that particular research. What are the criteria of a good research? A good research must be clearly defined, and the objectives of a good research must be clearly defined, which I made mention earlier on. Because if it will be a guide to you arriving at a problem-solving research. If you do not know where you are going, you will just be perambulating and everything goes. But with objectives, it will be a guide towards achieving a goal, because there's a problem you want to solve. We made mention of coccidiosis earlier on. If it is not defined, the objective, then you may be doing something that will even aggravate the problem, and eventually you will not arrive at a predetermined destination. So it is very important that an objective or objectives are set before carrying out a research. It is important. Then a good research must be explanatory and reproducible. When it is done severally, the same results will still be obtained. That is the quality of a good research. Let them do it in Nigeria, let them do it abroad. The same results will still be gotten. That is what makes a good research, because it is reproducible and it is explanatory. And a good research must also be well designed and goal oriented. This is still in line with objectives. Once you know your objective, you know what are the things that are needed to enable you arrive at your goals. And also, adequate analytical works must be put in place. A good research must have enough analytical works, because if there's any deficiency in the procedure, it will affect the end results of our research. Also, the faults and lacunae must be identified. It is expected that you encounter one or two challenges in the course of your research. All this must be pointed out, so as if the need to take that same particular research another time, then one would have to put into consideration the faults that had been earlier encountered during the process of doing this research earlier on. And also, a good research must have an inference that is justified with right statistical tools. Using statistical tools to arrive at, to analyze a particular result is crucial in a research, because if the right statistical tool is not employed, then one will be making wrong interpretation, where one way ANOVA is supposed to be used, two-way ANOVA is being employed. So it will give wrong interpretation, and the product of such research with that anomaly would also be abnormal. It's not going to give us the right result. So all of these criteria are very important if we must conduct a good research. And all of these things are still under research methodology, because research methodology entails all activities that are needed for a research to be conducted and to have a good result, whereby the end product is to solve problem or advance an existing solution. Because of time, let me move on to the next slide, which is types of research. This is not exhaustible. I only brought these few ones that are basic and that we are familiar with. The first one is descriptive research. This describes the state of a phenomenon. For instance, there is COVID-19, and we want to look at what is the cause of COVID-19. How does the virus bring about the cause of COVID-19? So when you do that, you now describe the pathogenesis, the pathophysiology, and how the host reacts to this virus. So in a way, that is a kind of descriptive research. For analytical research, this is the use of the information or the facts available to a researcher to critically analyze the situation. It is more of descriptive, but it is deeper in terms of critical analysis. For instance, in infectious coryza, there's cloudy eyes, swollen eyes. So we want to see what made this to be so, and how does the bacterium that causes infectious coryza, how does it bring about these lesions we have found in the bed. So those facts that you have seen can then help you to make your diagnosis. So analytical research is more of a descriptive research, whereby you critically go deeper into the cause and the nature of the problem with the available facts and figures for the researcher. Then the fundamental or basic research is also known as the exploratory research. This is the kind of research that is embarked upon for the sake of knowledge. For instance, Newton's law of motion or Newton's law of gravity. All this was the research was based to add knowledge to the existing knowledge. So it is not really a problem solving per se, but to unearth the hidden facts of the universe. But it is a research, it is a product of critical thinking. And conceptual research is the type of research in which a new concept is developed from an existing subject. So there are other various types of research, but these are the basic ones around us which are very important. We can read more, but with this, it is important that we call our attention to this and we realize what different kinds of researches we have and in what way and how do we go about getting them. So we have been talking about research for the past few minutes. So what are the steps taken in ensuring that you have a good research? And remember, I said all that we have mentioned, they are still part of research methodology. This research methodology has something to do with all the things that entail in getting research done. And the purpose of doing any research is to solve problems. So you must be able, the first step is identification and conceptualization of a problem. One must be able to identify the problem and conceptualize it. Because if there's no problem, what are you coming to do? If there's no solution that needs to be advanced, then your purpose of research is forfeited. So the first step is to identify a problem to be solved. And when that problem is identified, then you now conceptualize it. The next step is purpose of study, which is in line with the objectives of research. Because you have identified this particular problem and you want to solve it. That's the purpose of engaging in this research. So that will be one's guide in arriving at solution because you already know the goal ahead and the steps towards achieving that goal will be guided as a two-step-wise procedure. The literature survey or review, you need to look at what have been done in these areas or area in which you want to embark on. For instance, if some works have been done on avian influenza, so why are you doing the same work? So you have to look at the literature to see what has been done before now and what are you adding, what is lacking. You exhaust all the available resources on that particular subject in which you want to carry out research on. It is very important. So there's no point repeating what has been done if you are not making any contribution to knowledge or if you are not solving any problem. So you have to do literature survey so as to be able to know which work has been done before now and what needs more to be done. Also, after that, then problem selection. Having identified several problems, from the literature review, you would know which of the problems to select from because you have identified the problems. But by the time you now look at the literature, oh, some of the problems have been solved. Then the ones that are not solved are the ones you now select and prefer solution to bringing your research. Then you list out the objectives of the study. When you do that, you are moving towards the goals in which research is being carried out. Then variables and parameters to be included in the study to fit the objective. You have identified the problem and you want to provide the solution to this problem. Then what are the things you need? Is it through experiments or it is through questionnaire. All those variables and parameters, the tools, the gadgets. Hello.
You're welcome back,
Hello.
sir. Yeah, I think we lost you there.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the
No problem.
interruption.
You're welcome back.
Okay. So I was talking about hypothesis before the break in the transmission. Yes, like I said, if you want to hypothesize that amprolium is no longer effective against coccidiosis, so that hypothesis is, you have to, so it is like a guide too towards the objective, because you know that what you're actually looking is an assumption. So at the end of the study, you can now say, oh, truly amprolium is not effective against coccidiosis. But if otherwise, you will state it. But because you have already formulated that hypothesis at the beginning of your research, so it will also be a guide towards getting to the end of the research. So hypothesis is very important. And those in social sciences, they have this null and other hypotheses. But for us in science-based discipline, we only need none and this other hypothesis. I can't remember now. Then sample selection. You have to select the sample size. There are formulas to, to go about all of these things. But before then, this is still a subject to the objective of the research. So it will now inform, oh, what numbers of animals, what numbers of birds do I need to get this done effectively? Or, okay, do I really need broilers, or is it layers that are important? But it is the problem, the objective that will inform the kind of samples you will use. And the objective is also a function of what size of the samples that are needed. So you have to select your samples based on the identified problem and the solution you plan to profile. The operationalization of concepts and optimization of the research instruments, in line with what I said earlier, that look, okay, these are the tools, these are the equipment that I need to get this job done. For all those things, you have to standardize it based on what you have found in the literature. You have, if you have to modify any, all this must be stated clearly, and why you give justification for doing all that you have done. Then the next one is collection of information. In the course of your experiments or questionnaire or inferential, whatever approach you had embarked on in your research. You collect information. After you collect information, then you analyze those information. You tabulate it, you process it, subject it to statistical tools, depending on what information you have gathered. Then, having done that, then you now interpret the results. So by the time, for you to be able to interpret the results, you must have engaged yourself with the right statistical tools. And when you do that, your results that you have gotten or that you have garnered, they will now inform your conclusion. Oh, from what I've seen so far, it is expedient that the use of amprolium to treat coccidiosis is effective. Oh, it is not effective based on the results of your experiment and other information that are associated with the activities. Then another thing is the future scope of the research. You may not be able to explore that particular concept in your study. So you give room for further investigation, and it must be stated. And we said research is a continual phenomenon. You cannot exhaust it. One solution leads to another problem, then another advancement of problem. So it is what makes us exist, and we cannot delineate ourselves from these facts. So research is a continual process, and there's always room for future investigation or
Sorry,
further
doctor.
investigation.
Sorry to